Hello and good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is your captain speaking, and welcome to We Educate Racing. In this video, we're going to talk about how to tune for ride height in Gran Turismo 7. Now, if you have not seen the natural frequency video, I highly recommend you check that out first, so not only would you be caught up as to how we got these values here, but everything that we talk about in this video would make sense. Now, if you have not subscribed to the video yet, we still have everything else to talk about. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out when those videos come out. Okay? That being said, it's lights out and away we go. Everybody knows not to tune your ride height to its minimum or you'll increase the chance of bottoming out. Or the tires scrub the wheel well and it makes it so the car doesn't turn. Okay, whatever. Everybody knows that. So, for this video, we're going to set our ride height to 85 or 10 clicks up. It doesn't necessarily matter the value, it's just 10 clicks up. Because some cars, this value is different. Okay, so for this car, it's 85, 105. 10 clicks up. Okay. Now that we set our minimum values, we need to talk about our goal and why we're tuning ride height anyway. Okay, we're tuning ride height because we want the car to stand a certain way so that it's generating a 50-50 ratio of oversteer and understeer. Okay, the car is generating an X amount of understeer and we need to generate an X amount of oversteer to cancel that so that it's a 50-50 understeer oversteer ratio. Okay. In order to do that, we need to do a couple things. Number one is to lock our front suspension. Okay, when I say lock, I'm referring to the ride height and the natural frequency. Okay, let me give you an example to better explain what I mean when I say lock these two together. Okay. Now, I locked this ride. This is the ride height we agreed on, and this is the natural frequency we also agreed on, okay? Now, I'm going to lock these values together. Fine. If I decide to increase just my ride height, okay, this means that the natural frequency has 5 more clicks to travel before it hits its tick to oscillate, okay? At 85 millimeters, the length of our spring oscillates at 2.5 times in 1 second, okay, at the range of 85 millimeters. But if I'm to extend that range, that means the time it takes to tick is now longer, making natural frequency feel like 2.45 even though it's oscillating at 2.5. Okay, that is an inconsistency that we do not want. All right, we all agreed that we want our natural frequency to be as strong as 2.5 times the strength needed to support the front weight of the car. Okay, so this value cannot change. So the only thing that will change is the ride height. But if we change the ride height, we have to compensate for the discrepancy with the new distance traveled for the new ride height setting. Okay, so because it's going to feel like 2.45, we need to compensate for that by adding 5. Okay, so now that it would feel like 2.5. Okay, so since we started at 2.5, we increased the value of the ride height. Therefore, it feels like 2.45, even though it's oscillating at 2.5. Therefore, we need to increase the natural frequency to 2.55 to make it feel like 2.5. Okay, that is a discrepancy that we do not want in our cars because it becomes confusing. It's more for like advanced tuning. Okay, but that is just one thing to remember when you adjust for ride height, that you need to establish your minimum where you want your car set and then lock it in to your natural frequency. Okay, so even if you decide that you want to lock your ride height, say at 82, okay, that means the natural frequency still oscillates at 2.5 times per second at the range of 82. And that if you're to increase the ride height alone, then that means this will still feel like 2.45 even though it's moving at the range of 2.5. Okay, it's the same principle. So just because I set it at 85 doesn't mean it's permanent. This is just how we agreed to set our ride height at, and this is how we agreed our natural frequency to set at, and this is our consistency. This is how we maintain consistency. We don't want to change this value, but if we do, then we need to change this value. Or if this is your prime, as in this is how you want your ride height to be set at, just know that this is going to feel softer than it was for when it was 85. But it's okay if you want to set it at 90. It's solely up to you. The ride height adjustment is dependent on how the driver wants it and depending on the track. If it's like it has a lot of hills and crests and dips, then you need to have a higher ride height. If it's like Silverstone and it's flat, then you can ride a lower ride height. It's fine. It's totally up to the driver. But just know that when you set your minimum, you need to lock it with your natural frequency, and that every time you adjust for it, you need to also adjust for natural frequency. That's what I mean when I say lock these two together. Okay? All right, that was a lot. Moving on. Now that we understand how that we need to lock these two together, we can also assume that the rear spring is locked together, right? 10 points up and set to 2.62, which makes the rear feel like 2.5. When you hit the brakes, the front's going to compress a certain way. When you accelerate, the springs will compress the same way, the same rate. Okay, this is 50-50. This is balanced. This is what we want. Okay. However, we don't know how much oversteer this is generating just yet. We know, since we locked this value, we know that the front is generating an X amount of understeer. How much does not matter. What matters is how much ride height we need to apply to cancel out that understeer. And in order for us to figure that out, we have to unfortunately go out and test drive it. But we're not going to do that in this video. We're just going to assume that the sweet spot that cancels out the understeer is at 105. This value will vary depending on the car and the weight balance and all of that. This will change. So, but just keep in mind that we set our suspension this way. Okay. Keep in mind if we remember we set our springs 10 points up and locked it in with 2.5. Okay, so that if this is too high, of a ride height for the rear, as in it's generating too much oversteer, and you reduce it by 2 points, because it's locked in, you need to reduce this 2 points. Okay, these parameters need to be locked together once you've established your minimum ride height, because then you're gonna develop inconsistencies and we don't want that. Okay, all right. Now before we go, we need to mention inertia. Okay, the higher your car is, the more inertia it generates, and depending on where that ride height is will depict how much understeer for the front. Okay, if you increase your front, you're generating understeer. If you increase your rear, you're generating oversteer. Okay, so if I had a setup like this, right, the balanced minimum, if you increase the rear, that means the rear is now more oversteery compared to our 85. Remember, this 85 was the sweet spot that we agreed on. That we just pretend that this is the sweet spot, okay? Anything past this is now excess oversteer. And that's bad unless that's what you intend for the car to do. Okay, so we'll click this back. If you increase the front's ride height, you're generating understeer, making the car harder to turn. So if you need to increase your ride height, you also need to increase your rear ride height to compensate for the new level of understeer the front is generating. Right? The reason why we need to lock the springs together is because it becomes the foundation of how we build the rest of our car. Depending on how strong your front spring is and its ride height will depict how the rest of the car will behave, right? If you decide to set it up like this, the rear or the car is going to behave a different way. If you decided to set it like this, the car will behave a different way. So you have to tune the car according to the new ride heights that you set this front spring to be. Okay, if let's say for instance that this is the perfect tune, this is perfect, all good, you don't need to touch it. Okay, if you increase the ride height alone, the entire build is broken. Okay, you need to build your suspension from the locking the spring together, then build your springs from that. Okay, that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you tune for ride height in Gran Turismo 7. It's the job of the ride height to generate oversteer and understeer, right? Or to cancel out any excess oversteer or understeer. Okay, 50-50. The spring's job is to support the weight of the car. Okay, it's the damper's job to control the weight of the car, right? And we'll get to that in the dampers video. Now, just to let you guys know, there is so much to talk about in the dampers video, so we might have to split it up with just compression first, then expansion, or maybe front side first, then the rear. We don't know. We'll see how long the videos become, but I'll try to keep all videos within 10 minutes. All right. So that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Do like this video if you did learn how to tune your ride height for Gran Turismo 7. This information, it applies to all other racing games as well. It's physics. You can do this in real life as well. But yeah, congratulations. You now understand how to tune for ride height in Gran Turismo 7. All right, until the next one, guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.